Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Phil's Recap and Review. Today I'm going to be looking at Star Trek films and ranking them from my least favorite into my favorite, and talking a little bit about them. Last night was the premiere episode of the Orville, and then in 2 weeks we got the premiere episode of Discovery, Star Trek Discovery. I'm in an all-time Star Trek kind of excitement stuff. I wouldn't say I'm like knee-deep in it the way I was in, say, when I first discovered Deep Space Nine or something like that. But I'm really bathing myself in Star Trek. I'm going back and rewatching a lot of stuff, reinvigorating myself with the idea of it. So I know some people might come out here and be like, oh God, we just heard you talk about Orville for 2 hours last night. We don't hear you talk more Star Trek. If that's the case, thank you so much for popping on in. I really do appreciate that. But there's going to be a lot more silly Star Trek talk going on. But I'm not alone. This is impromptu. This isn't even surprise. I haven't even made the goddamn fucking thumbnail for this video yet. And I know maybe some Trek people are coming on in here or checking this video out later. Welcome. We do a lot of different television shows, a lot of different reactions to different things. So join on in, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be talking about Discovery and Orville. Also talk about Game of Thrones, Vikings, Better Call Saul. I always skip The Walking Dead. Walking Dead, Westworld, lots of good stuff. Star Trek's been something that I've always had an extreme affinity for. The very first YouTube channel I made, which has long since been, well, it's still there, but the videos got blocked. Because I've made a few little Star Trek videos using clips from the shows and stuff like that. But I haven't really sat down, and in my old podcast, I did a whole Star Trek month back in 2009. But I haven't really sat down and legitimately dug in Star Trek on this channel in a long time. I've been lucky enough to be on Quinn from Ideas of Ice and Fire's channel. That's going to be released soon. A podcast that him and I did where we basically just Star Trek geek out for an hour and a half. I've been on with Mark and his stuff before talking about Trek. But I want to start, and we've done one Star Trek review on this channel, and then one sort of Leonard Nimoy thing, and another review about finding out that Star Trek was going to be on CBS All Access. But other than all of that, it's time to start talking Next Generation. It's time to start talking Deep Space Nine, Voyager, everything. And I couldn't get enough. I was talking so much last night. I got on the phone. I was talking to people about Orville this afternoon. I need to talk more of this shit. I wasn't sure what I was going to do this afternoon, because this, again, is me all hyperactive, pre-sandwiching. But I knew I wanted to come out and talk to you guys. There's a few things that are going to be added to the channel in the next weeks in between the Game of Thrones season. Obviously, all the shows we do. I also, as I mentioned, want to talk Trek a lot more, and also talk music history a lot more. And October 14th, I mentioned we're going to have a trivia competition between 3 of my good friends. I also was considering today, instead of doing a Star Trek thing, I'm going to be doing like music histories of different bands and stuff. And I think the first one I'm going to be doing is Pink Floyd. So I'll be doing that on one of these afternoon streams as well. Basically, it's enough talking about wanting to do this every day. It's time to just start doing it until people tell me to stop. Listen, dude. We've heard enough of you. I want you to get the fuck out of here. And tomorrow afternoon, I'll be on again tomorrow at about 2:30 p.m. with my friend Evan King Baby Duck to do our Emmy picks again this year. So if anyone's interested in that kind of tomfoolery, please join Evan and I at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow afternoon for more of that. Stephanie and I will be on Sunday. So a lot of shit coming up soon. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. I definitely bite, but I'm not alone. I have with me some of the best, some of the beautiful, the live motherfucking chat. Holy shit, motherfuckers. We got some great people in the live motherfucking chat. We got, Broke. We got Echo. We got Felicia, who, why do I always go to bed early, Felicia? You know, interesting things get shared at night, but I gotta go. We got the motherfucking great Broke Black Man 94, great dude. Travis is in the live chat right now. Great to see Travis. And I believe today is this both Travis and Felicia's birthday today, legitimately? So, happy birthday. Pink Floyd goes well with everything, all things Star Trek, even the terrible gods of men. Oh my goodness. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of Trek over the next couple of weeks. I'm also going to do my series ranking order and then kind of get more into specifics rather than generalities. But today, we're going to be specifically looking at the films. The Star Trek films, even the new ones. 1979 Star Trek all the way up through Into Darkness. We're going to be talking about that, ranking those. I'm going to tell a little bit about each movie. Some I have more to say about than others, and I haven't even made my list yet. I'm seriously, like, no bullshit, just sitting here looking at this, looking at all the names of the movies right here, and going to be clicky on least favorite to favorite here. And it's going to be an interesting, and I think in some cases, a surprising order of where I rank some of my least favorite ones and my favorite ones. But let's not waste too much time. Let's go into the live motherfucking chat and see. Oh, we got Eric Nolan. Eric Nolan, I cannot wait to hopefully see you on Vikings this year. And amazing work. I actually did see you on Game of Thrones. We got Eric Nolan. If you guys don't know, he is an extra on Vikings, Game of Thrones, and some other stuff as well. And an excellent musician as well. Follow Eric Nolan on SoundCloud and everywhere else you can. I want to give him a long, lingering hug. And happy birthday to everybody. Oh, LT just got out of work. Great to hear. Great to see you. Great to see one of the nicest guys in the world, LT, in there in the live fucking chat. B. Leon says Star Trek is for old people. Fair enough. I'm old. I'm old as dirt. Love all things Star Trek, even the Turbo Gods. My word, did that. Star Trek is for old people. Well, a lot of Trek maybe is for old people. I'd say there were 3 Star Trek movies made not for old people. Not for people like me, and not for people that need to walk with a cane and whose beard's gray. And that's, I think, these 3 movies right here that we'll be talking about eventually. So great to see everybody. Okay, total Star Trek virgin here. I'm a Star Wars guy, but I'm here for you. You can do it. You can roll past the place and point at me and go, nerd! That's fine. I own it. I've been a Star Trek fan before it was all right to be a Star Trek fan. I probably became, the first thing I saw that made me a Star Trek fan was the animated series, the Star Trek the Animated Series, when I was watching that many years ago. That, a lot of things came from that. The Kirk's middle name, Tiberius, I believe, came from that. A couple of other sort of factors. It's not necessarily canon, but it is kind of brought through. And then I went to go see some of the movies when I was a kid in the theater. And eventually I was one of those people that when Next Generation first got announced, I was like, so this isn't going to be Star Trek. This isn't Star Trek. This sucks. Blah. I'm fucking whatever, young boy. A young Klingon boy. And really upset that we're getting these new characters, these new Star Trek. And I remember watching the first 2 seasons of this new Star Trek and really not liking it and being like, this is shit. Especially when in season 2, like my favorite character in season 1 was Crusher, and then they bring in Pulaski in season 2, and I'm like, the fuck? Are they just trying to shit on my head here in the show? So then I turned it off and didn't watch it for many, many years, and kind of strayed away from Star Trek a little bit, or not saying I was a fan, but I would often say I'm a fan of Kirk and Spock and McCoy. I'm not, and Scotty and all of them. I'm not a fan of Star Trek as a whole. Then I dated this girl, different Stephanie, not the Stephanie I married, but I was dating this girl who was just literally the biggest Star Trek fan in the world. She was way into things that I had long since sort of lost. And she was into Star Trek. She was into dressing up like Nightcrawler and having weird sex. She was like, she had all these weird personality traits that I think are amazing. I'm not saying weird in a bad way. I'm saying weird in like different than I had ever experienced before. And she started to want to put like Star Trek on while we were being intimate and stuff. And I sort of started ignoring the intimacy. Okay, I'm sorry. And watching the Star Trek. And it got me reinvigorated and into being a Star Trek fan. I started to watch Next Generation over and over again online and just watch those episodes. And I expelled my interest in Next Generations. I went back, watched all the movies. I'm like, I need more Star Trek. What the shit is going on here? More Trek, more Trek, more Trek. So I, on sort of by accident, watched the episode Emissary from Deep Space Nine. And then it was all over. It was all over. I suddenly binge-watched every second of Deep Space Nine. It became one of my favorite series of all time, maybe even my favorite of all time. And I just was completely engulfed into the Star Trek universe. I watched Voyager, wasn't quite as impressed. Watched Enterprise, was even less impressed. But it never was able to put out the flame of my Star Trek love. And I think part of that is Trek is so multifaceted. Yes, it's all based around the vision of Gene Roddenberry, but it's also can be many different things to many different people. It can be that cheesy, this is Captain Kirk. What's going on here? It can be that. It can be Beam Me Up, Scotty. It can be Live Long and Prosper. Or it can be Picard. It can be the Love Boat in Space with Picard and all of them. It can be Data discovering himself as human. Or now with Deep Space Nine, what it can be is, in some parts of Enterprise, more long-form storytelling. But is Star Trek a movie franchise? I'm going to say no. Yes, it is a movie franchise. Like there's, 11 movies, 10 movies or something like that? Let me count this. We got the first 6 movies, then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 movies. 13 movies. Yes, it's a film franchise. But I think ideally it's a television franchise that has been trying to be taken advantage of in a film context. And within that, we've gotten a few good films. But wide lens, big sword, casting fucking a slice across everything. I'm going to say by nature, Star Trek, for me, is always better on television than it is in the movies. And it is best in the Deep Space Nine format, and even Enterprise in the final couple seasons format, when we have more long-form stories, more serialized kind of stuff going on, less episodic. Next Generation, Voyager, first part of Enterprise, and original series is very much episodic. What I like about the early movies, especially the 3 big ones, Star Trek 2, 3, 4, which are a trilogy. More of a trilogy if you read some of the books and all of that. They fit very well together, and it's a long-form story. We can even connect that into, if we skip Star Trek 5, gross piece of shit movie. Minus the stuff between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. We'll get into that. But if we skip Star Trek 5, even into Star Trek 6, it's a carrying storyline about what happens with Kirk, with his family, with his son, Kirk getting older, discovering Kirk and Spock and McCoy ultimately becoming ancient and moving on, where the original series is sort of caught in a bubble of that 5-year mission, episodic, blah, 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 blah. I think also the movies work better in that long form because movies work well in that context. And I think the characters of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy and the rest of the crew, I'm just saying that in a way of, I don't want to ignore Ahura, Chekhov, oh my, Sulu, or anybody else, or any of the red shirts, or Snotty beaming me up. But ultimately, it's about the Triforce, and it's an easier way of just referring to that cast. But I think every member of that cast has gravitas, has a ability to carry a scene, and I think you see that even more with what Sulu's become with the Howard Stern or whatever. He just has such a personality. George Takei. Great to see everyone in the live motherfucking chat. You guys are amazing. Films is where good stories go to die. Kylo Ren will always be a pussy. Johnny Giant Spade in the live chat. Every TV show that makes money will be raped into a film. Felicia says, my boyfriend's just looking at me shaking his head like, you fucking nerd. I love the Trek babble. The Excel purple beams. Sir, the Excel purple beams of proton wires might be causing an electric who's-a-what's it to rust, Sir Captain. There's something on the wing, something. Phil, if you haven't done it yet today, please watch the YouTube video by the YouTube channel Pogo. It's called Data in Picard. It's amazing, so catchy. You will love it. Walking David, you are a admin, so could you share with me the link in the chat below so people could watch that? And I would play it on this video right now, but I don't want to play someone else's video and have them go, you motherfucker, why are you playing my video? But I will promote their video. It's Star Trek based, so definitely share that in there. Star Trek during sex. I'm so far. We got Johnny. Phil has Data skin complexion. Android confirmed. David having a great day. Perfect distraction from work. Good timing, says the Bloody Talker. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling back up in the chat, catching up with everybody. What's up, Randy? Did you know that every time Star Trek, when they beam themselves, they actually die and a clone is generated? That is absolutely true. That gets explored a lot more in the episode Second Chances on Star Trek, where Miles Edward O'Brien was beaming up Riker from a planet and ultimately had a little malfunction and was materialized, didn't quite. Ultimately, we ended up with 2 Rikers, Thomas Riker and William Riker. And Thomas Riker becomes much more of a character in an episode. He ends up showing up in Deep Space Nine for an episode. And in the audiobook series Imzadi, they eventually continue his storyline with Deanna, and he has to relate and deal with the fact that Deanna and William Riker, were married at some point in time. Sorry for the quick geek. If you guys throw Star Trek stuff out at me, I'm going to go down Star Trek rabbit holes today. I can't help it. This is someone I am like a kid that's been waiting to have sex for so long, and I finally do it, and I explode in 2 seconds. There's so much Star Trek buildup going on my entertainment penis right now that it's just going to all come out in one big crazy squirt. Thank you, David. But yeah, definitely share that in the description box below. Everyone's seeing the neat is that they explore that. Let me know. That blows your mind. That's how it works in quantum physics. I didn't know that, but I do know the episode Phil's talking about. Jeez. You do know the Riker episode I'm talking about. And there's also another character on Next Generation called Barclay. And Barclay is somebody that I think he's one of the coolest characters ever introduced in Next Generation. Quinn talks about him a lot in our review that we do, and I think if I remember correctly, he's one of Quinn's favorite characters from Star Trek. Because he is not, on Next Generation, there's a habit of these characters being, their shit don't stinking. And a part of that is what Gene Roddenberry towards the end wanted, if this is the future, no one argues. Sort of thing going on, everyone's enlightened. No one has issues. Where Barclay has issues. He has holodeck addiction. He has human problems, and he has a severe fear of using the transporter beam because he doesn't want to get destroyed and rematerialized. I think Bones also has a similar problem with it in this first Star Trek movie and a couple of times here and there. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. I just want you to watch. This guy doesn't need promotion. He's already big. I will watch that at some point. I'm copying that, David, and pasting it somewhere else so I remember it. Oh, yeah. I'm pasting it in the Star Trek group of the Discord group because if there's anything I'm going to remember, it's going to be this. Yeah. Where are you? Touch me, Star Trek group. I want to stick you in here. So if you haven't already, please join our Discord group where you can keep the discussion going all week long in between the shows you want to watch. Deanna was into him, though. Deanna was way into him. When technical difficulties show up, if you hear a bong, it's not really a bong. It's a plastic module made of a Pluton ray to give the energy to the shield module. And that's gonna get our Hosen Witch flappadoodie and make it zibbity-zoo out of the kooky pumps. So let's not waste any more time and get into my actual list of these things, because I could just talk about the series over and over again, and I am going to talk about the series. I'm going to do individual casts like this on each of the series and break it down a little bit more, and then even break it down even more by taking individual episodes and breaking those down. So it's going to be a lot more Star Trek for the people that hate it or like it. You're going to have to deal with a lot more of that on the channel. But let's get into what our topic of the day is, and that is the Star Trek movies. So let's do it. Dr. Sung, he's a mighty big genius. He built a dude Data with an android penis. He fucked the girl Tasha, the Borg queen too. You better watch out, I said he's coming for you. This Data named Data, he don't understand. He got logic like a Vulcan, but the strength of 10 men. He solved the ship's problems at the greatest at ease. All crew members bow at your knees for Data. Talking about some life forms. Now we're going to get into talking about what our actual topic is for the day. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the Star Trek movies. What's my favorite? What's my least favorite movies? Now, this is going to seem like a weird list, especially when we get to the least favorite list, because some of the ones I say are my least favorite might not be super popular, because some people might really like these movies, and some of them I do think are relatively popular Star Trek movies. But I'm going to be going all around the list here. And Randy says the new movies are so fucking good. Put phasers on stun and shoot them out like you're a nerd. Hey, Phil, what would you recommend a newbie to start with Star Trek? Now, I would say, no, Jay, you just came in at the wrong time. I would say the good first place to start for Star Trek would be the movie Wrath of Khan. Even though it deals with a different issue, I think that's a good starting point. Another good episode to watch if you want a TV episode, even though it's totally out of context, I would say in the Pale Moonlight, which is a Deep Space Nine episode, to show you that Star Trek can be more than just what maybe someone that has an avergence to it can think it can be. It can actually be something really deep, psychologically thrilling and stuff. Whereas if you start with Next Generation or start with some of the original series stuff, it's a little bit of the Star Trek predictable stuff. But if you like television the way it is nowadays, I would say watch the episode in the Pale Moonlight. And I'm a Deep Space Nine slut. Yesterday's Enterprise is another good one. There's a lot of, I would say, watch a single episode of one of the series. Look in highest ranking episodes, watch one or two of those episodes just to get a feel for Star Trek at its best. And watch yesterday's Enterprise too, because you can see Shooter McGavin in it. But I'd say those are kind of some good places to start. Wrath of Khan is the logical place to start because, spoiler alert on this list, the first movie isn't very good. And it hasn't aged well at all. So if you're going to start with one single place, Wrath of Khan fills you in with enough past information about the 5-year mission and about who these people are. And it also fills in the information of who this guy Khan is. And it's important, and it's a good prototypical movie. And I think almost all the other Star Trek movies, at least the good ones, are kind of based off this movie. So I think that's the logical place to start. SM says, the only Star Trek movies I like are the Chris Pine ones and the ones with William Shatner, and that bald dude's okay. We need the Wrath of Shaka Khan. I like that, the Wrath of Shaka Khan. So let's get to our list here. Now, what is my least favorite of the Star Trek movies? I mean the worst one on this list for me. The worst one on this list for me is Insurrection. Yes, that's right. Star Trek Insurrection is my least favorite of the movies. Okay, this is nothing but a poor excuse for an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Insurrection was a follow-up movie to First Contact, which was a huge success for Star Trek. So they allowed the same kind of team to go into another episode. I believe this was directed by Jonathan Frakes. Yes, it was directed by William Riker, Jonathan Frakes himself. I think First Contact's a very good movie. And I think they liked what Frakes did with it. Frakes is a good television director. And I think he shot his wad as a movie director with First Contact, which I think was a built-in story that needed to be told in the Next Generation universe with the Borg. You can't screw up a Borg movie, I don't think, in the way they did. They almost did with the Borg Queen. But we'll get to First Contact eventually. Insurrection is just a boring episode about this race of people that are really also, spoiler alert for all the movies, guys, which are also really the Xindi, and they're on this Fountain of Youth planet, and then everyone comes down, and they need to hide the people, and I can't even get into it. It's even more boring than that sounds. There's another episode of the TV series with Paul Sorvino, I believe his name is, and playing Worf's brother, where they have to get a village to or get some people out of a village. And this episode is like that mixed with another episode from season 7. I think it should never have been a movie. It's at best a television kind of movie kind of feel. It feels like it should have been a 2-part episode of Next Generation, but not even. It should have been thrown away on the cutting room floor of Next Generation episodes. A lot of people blame the end of this era of Star Trek on Nemesis. I blame it on Insurrection. It was at a good high coming off the first 2 Next Generation movies. And even though I don't think they were excellent, I think they're good movies that could have been built on something. And then if Insurrection, you open up the universe, you bring in Voyager people, you bring in Deep Space Nine people, you could have had a bigger, wider net of a universe. Instead, you choose to focus on this boring, small little fucking story that should never have been a fucking movie. It is boring. It is bad. I do not like Star Trek Insurrection. It is my least favorite of all the Star Trek movies. Bam. Okay? I can't fucking deal with it. I can't fucking deal with it. So, horrible fucking movie is dirty, wet ass of a movie. So let's get to another dirty, wet ass of a movie. And probably my next least favorite movie. And this is tough because I think so many people probably do like this movie. This is when I might be out on a limb here. But my next least favorite movie on this list is Star Trek: The Motion Picture, 1979 movie. Now, I gotta say, this movie was the one I saw the latest as well, of the original series films. I started off, I think the first one I ever saw was 5, actually, which is funny. Then I went and saw 4, 2, 3, eventually, 6, which is fucking amazing. Then I went back and watched 1. Had a lot of anticipation built around it. But then you watch Star Trek 1, and it lived in a universe where Space Odyssey had just come out, and Star Wars had just come out. And so there's a lot of ship porn. I was talking about that last night in Orville. There is whole segments of this movie where we're just watching the Enterprise move. That's all we're watching, the Enterprise move. And it gets built up like this huge fucking exciting thing. Sorry, as I look for toys. I'm like looking for toy visuals and stuff. I think I have it here. Wrong Enterprise. Wrong. I don't have the real Enterprise. I don't have the Enterprise 101, but I do have a Enterprise D here. So it's like the Enterprise. They just have it like slowly moving past the camera. Dun 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 dun. And the whole plot deals with Sinead O'Connor having sex with the dad from Seventh Heaven or something. There's like this, I don't know, it's weird. It's all this V'ger thing going on with the movie, and the effects look really bad in the sense like if you're going back and playing a Nintendo 64 video game and it just looks like pathetically awful, like the visual effects just don't hold up on any level. The best part is Bones when he shows up with his big fucking burly Manson beard and shit. But other than that, this movie is boring. It's not as funny as the rest of original series Trek stuff. It doesn't have the same tone, and it was coming off trying to get another television series, and it never just happened. And they were trying to leech off the popularity of Space Odyssey and do something similar, and it didn't fucking work. Didn't work. Horrible. Phil just telling us for the first time that he got high. Very first time. Travis says the Whales one is my least favorite. Anything that is called the movie can get fucked. That did not spoil anything. I don't understand what you said. That was basically word salad for me. I understood Borg, Worf, and episode. Johnny says first contact was dope. Worf and the Borg outside the ship, epic scene. I did like that a lot. Only things I bother about, my oath of celibacy is on record. Good to know. Holy shit, Seventh Heaven reference. Did you really just make a Seventh Heaven? Yes, the dad from Seventh Heaven is... Funny thing about Seventh Heaven, it's almost as funny as the Friday the 13th... No, excuse me, Nightmare on Elm Street, Just the 10 of Us connection, where I think it's like 5 of the girls from the show Just the 10 of Us were girls that got killed in Nightmare on Elm Street movies, including our, original Freddy Krueger antagonist. I love how I'm making Freddy the good guy in this. Antagonist Nancy. Then the one that's working out where it gets squished in the bug thing. And then there's 2 other ones, I think, from the TV show Just the 10 of Us. In this situation, what the fuck was I talking about? Seventh Heaven. The mother and the father from Seventh Heaven are both in Star Trek movies. We have the original father, the father from Seventh Heaven in the original movie, and then the Whales one, as Travis was saying, plays Shatner's girl in the original movie, where they totally fuck up the Prime Directive in that movie. Excuse me, by bringing someone from the past into the future. It's a whole clusterfuck of shit. Lady Warrior says, okay, not saying because I don't like any of Star Trek except the season of the poster that was behind Phil. We got a Seventh Heaven and Happy Gilmore references. Welcome to the Issues program. Yes, Nightmare on Elm Street, make a horror stream in October. Hey, I don't watch Star Trek ever. It is more than okay for you guys not to like Star Trek. I know some of our core viewers of the channel might not like. I see a couple of you guys saying things like, the only Trek I like is the new stuff. The only thing I like is the Christopher Pine movies, which are more action-oriented. We had someone earlier in the chat, I think they were trying to be a little like, fuck you, Phil, for doing this. Star Trek's for old people. And hey, read it and weep. I'm an old person. But the new movies, I feel like, aren't for that. And if you notice, the bottom 2 on my list aren't any of those new movies. So I'm not so killing those new movies to the point where I can say they're the biggest pieces of shit in the world. Because I think those two movies are worse than the worst one of those. But as I move up on this list, we're gonna get to one of those new reboot movies. Number 3 on the worst list, and I know I'm doing this backwards, but the next worst one, or the one that's a little better than that, is Star Trek Into Darkness, 2013. Okay, if you're just watching this as an action movie, you might think, Phil,
what's your problem with that movie? It's not shitty.
Dudes, it's a flying piece of flaming horse crap. I recently heard, not that he's the wordsmith or the Lord and Savior of everything that's fucking good in entertainment, but for the very first time I heard Quentin Tarantino talking about Star Trek, it was really weird. You can find it on YouTube if you type in Quentin Tarantino talks about what he would do in a Star Trek movie. And this is actually his least favorite movie. He fucking hates this one too. He's like, the other two were pretty good, but he's more of a fan of the original series and that sort of stuff. And they asked him if he would ever do a Star Wars movie, and he said he'd be more likely to do Star Trek than Star Wars, I think is where the discussion came from. And he gets into how Star Trek for him is more cerebral and more blah, 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 and how he has a whole thought pattern. But he has so many problems with Into Darkness. And if you go back on the Issues Program website and you look back to Star Trek Month when that movie first came out, I go on maybe a 2-hour podcast where I just rant about all the things I found wrong with that movie. I don't want to reiterate that here, but I think they took an interesting character, completely deballed him. They took some interesting elements of different Star Trek stories, could not understand the character of Spock, not understand anything, just basically wanted to give us an action movie that isn't even a very good action movie. It's kind of a bullshitty shit happens in it. Don't like that movie except for the very intro half an hour that gives you this wonderfully colorful experience. Part of it might be my problem because I actually really like Star Trek 09, the first one of the 3, and I like the last one too. Spoiler alert! I liked Star Trek Beyond as well, but So I had a lot of high hopes for this second movie. I'm like, okay, they introduced everything. They introduced this new world, a new universe, a new sort of tactic to the scenes. We're going to get some really interesting stories. And then with that second movie, it came out on my birthday. I went to opening night tickets, sat there all excited. I was so built up and hyped for that movie, and it just disappointed me. That moment when Spock yelled, "Khan!" It was so cringeworthy, and it all surmises to the end to see a Vulcan fighting in a fist fight with Khan in a retread of another scene from a Star Trek movie that completely did not understand what that scene meant. Everyone sees the Khan, and they think that it's Kirk overacting and showing frustration. We see some people may see it on Seinfeld when George says that a thousand times when he's and everything like that. That scream in the pan out, that overacting moment of Shatner. But when we get to Wrath of Khan, but no, I'll say it now. If you watch Wrath of Khan, it's not that kind of moment in the movie. It plays a lot smaller than the scene is made out to be later. I'm not one to say Shatner doesn't overact, but in that moment, it is less eating scenery than some other stuff Shatner's done in the past. Like when I need my pain. My pain makes me me. Oh my God. Like everything he does in Star Trek 5. But in Star Trek 2, the Khan, it's him trying to trick Khan. So it's acting within acting. Is that acting? It's not acting. I don't know. So as an action movie, Star Trek Into Darkness was a great action movie. You just have a bad test on action movies. You just have bad taste on action movies if you don't think it was a good action movie. No, I don't. You just have bad taste in action movies if you think that was a good one. It's a horseshit movie. That's horseshitly done, is not even fun to watch. It's literally a flaming pile of dog shit on every possible way imaginable. So, no, I'm sorry. I'm usually like, oh no, you're probably ready to see what you're doing. No, that is a shitty action movie in all possible ways. Predictable, formulaic in every possible way. It's almost the same point for point thing as something like Man of Steel or like 10 other movies I could mention that came out around that time. An interesting action movie for me is something that either goes balls to the wall action and doesn't try to be anything else, doesn't try to have moments of depth at all, or something that can interwove things perfectly. And no, I'm sorry, Into Darkness does not do that at fucking all. So sorry, Jay. I love you, buddy, but I disagree with you on that one. So, Star Trek Legends of Into Darkness was awesome, Phil. Laughing my ass off. His argument was weak. Get him, Phil. I need to check news and make sure all my family is still alive in Florida. Lots of love to everyone in Florida. And Jay, feel free if you want to get your points across to leave a voicemail. I'll play for it later in the movie why you like this movie. And don't use the excuse, you don't know good action movies, and that's why you don't like the movie. That's not a good excuse. Tell me the reasons why you like the movie. And tell me what about it you enjoyed and what makes it better than some other action movies. What makes it better than a movie like First Contact or Wrath of Khan or even Nemesis for an action element. That's what I want to know. Didn't find the action and excitement. I found it repetitive and boring and kind of unbelievable and too much of like, ugh, what the fuck did that happen for? I appreciate that people liked it, but to me, that movie's a giant turd. Phil is a secret Michael Bay fan. Of course. I love the second Ninja Turtles movie. That was great. No, I don't. I don't like, I do, what Michael Bay movie? I kind of like, did he direct Bad Boys or some shit like that? Or like Bad Boys 2? Kind of like that. Action movies I do enjoy. Die Hard would be an action movie I enjoyed. I enjoyed the first one that just kind of popped into my head. I know I'm going to mention like all 90s movies or anything like that. Anything with Bruce Willis is cool for me. The Last Night with Richard Gere. Is that the movie with Richard Gere and Sean Connery and stuff? I definitely enjoy that movie. I don't care if it's historically shit. Braveheart, I think, is an exceptionally good action movie. The Last Night was awful. I couldn't get past that opening scene with Arthur. I enjoyed it. Last Night was one of those movies I enjoyed before I saw something like Braveheart, which I think is like the next logical step to that kind of thing. Return of the King, Lord of the Rings movies. I thought those movies did action and fantasy really, really well. Mars Attack, that's another good one. So getting to my next one on this list, let's go to another original series movie. And it's hard not to shit on this movie because basically this is the movie where Shatner became the Shatner bot that we know today. And that is, I love Marky Mark and all the happenings. No, The Last Night was the shit Transformer movie. Oh, okay, it was the shit. I'm thinking First Night, right? I'm not thinking Last Night. I'm thinking the First Night with Richard Gere and Sean Connery, which is the. I'm totally off there. But yeah, the next movie on this list is Star Trek V. Star Trek V has a couple of really good elements to it. I think the scenes with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy at the campsites are exceptionally well done. They really understand friendship, understand what the series is all about. It was, Leonard Nimoy had directed the previous two, had directed 3 and 4, or did he just direct 4? I'll look at that in a second. But Leonard Nimoy had just come off of, did he direct 3 or did he just direct 4? I'm sorry, I'm looking at this. Yes, he directed 3 and 4. Leonard Nimoy directed 3 and 4. So Shatner was basically like, whoa, Leonard directed 2 movies. You gotta give me one. You got to give me one. And they gave him one, and it ended up being this weird story about Spock's brother that could psychologically take away pain from people and then become and brainwash them, mixed with this story about them trying to find the center of the universe to break through the Great Barrier, something we've never really heard before, to find a planet and talk to God. What the flying fuck is going on here? Coupled with an interesting storyline about, again, Kirk kind of aging and Kirk, Spock, and McCoy growing out of this world that they live in. And I like the aspect. I think more of the movies probably should have taken place with them all on shore leave and interacting with seeing the breakdown of how these characters become family. It would be a good opportunity to meet Sulu's family, since we know later on in the story that he has a daughter that shows up in Star Trek VI. I think this movie was just a colossal failure in all possible ways. It just looked bad. It was filmed awfully. Things were cut. The best thing to come from this movie, besides the campfire scenes and Leonard Nimoy calling marshmallows marshmelons, was the Uhura fan dancing scene that's been spoofed a lot of different situations. So I think ultimately this movie is just again, one in that colossal failures list of Star Trek movies. Maybe, arguably, reasonably speaking, the worst of all the Star Trek movies. I'm talking about my favorites and least favorites. There's enough in this movie that I find some morbid enjoyment out of it that I wouldn't rank it as one of my least favorite, but it's definitely in the low half. It could very well be the worst Star Trek movie. The first half an hour was okay, but I think Shatner just wanted to say the line, what does God need with a starship? My favorite line in that movie, I thought that movie does have a couple of really good lines in it. That's an interesting line. I think the line I quote a lot is when Shatner is, and I mentioned it earlier in this podcast already, when Cyborg finally corners Kirk, Spock, and McCoy and starts trying to take away all their pains, goes to McCoy. McCoy's got a horrible fucking story where he kills his dad. He pulls the plug on his dad like 2 weeks before a cure comes up or something to the disease that killed his dad. Anyways, so he reduces his pain, takes Spock's pain away, then goes to Kirk and goes, Kirk, I want to take your pain away. And Kirk goes, no, I don't want you to take away my pain. I need my pain. My pain makes me who I am. And I always quote that for some reason because I think it's true. I think our pain or who we are or whatever, all the shit that we go through really defines us as human beings. And I think that's a good point and a good kind of, and I think Shatner probably had some good points on a board, but he's not a director and he so smells his own farts way too much and he can't think about things empathetically. And to be a director in some level, you have to look at the whole thing and think about how all your actors are feeling, especially if you're a cast member directing your fellow cast members and you already have an attitude where you pretend like you're better than everybody. So then suddenly, like, this is one of those things where you listen to Stern's George Takei interviews and you hear, like, this is the time where Shatner stopped calling him by name. He's like, I forget your name. You over there. Guy. Fucking pilot. Come over here. So it got to be like the crazy Shatner era. And I think this movie was really pathetic. Really pathetic. Wise call. Fuck it. I will SM. You need to call my Poseidon. He'll take care of your flash mob. A wise call. We'll settle for all that stuff. You guys are amazing in the live fucking chat. Yo, why are Ferengi's head shaped like Cersei's ass? For better sucking up of the prophets, dear sir. Better sucking up of the prophets. Okay, so yeah, there is not much to say about Star Trek V. I just think it's bad. It's bad. Way to be so eloquent about it, Phil. So, okay, let's get into my next one on this list. The next one that I'm going to talk about is... So we're starting to get past the middle point and getting to some movies I actually don't hate but somewhat enjoy. The next movie on this list would probably be Nemesis. Now, Star Trek Nemesis is the last of the Star Trek films. And I definitely generally have last of that era of the Star Trek films, the Berman era films or whatever, the Berman era universe, the prime universe, the last movie before Star Trek 09, the one that a lot of people say killed the franchise with a combination of this and Enterprise. This is starring future big huge star Tom Hardy, who plays a cloned version of Picard. It deals with the Romulan Riemann kind of situation, and it also deals with a big death of a major character, paralleling some other things. It was one of those movies that was written with a sequel in mind. In fact, they were so sure they were going to get a sequel, so many points got led into another movie that things got cut from this movie that they would have included if they knew it was going to be the last Star Trek movie. Now, other things that happen in this movie, Riker and Deanna are finally married. It has a huge, giant action scene ending with all these ships fighting a giant fucking ship and Hardy going crazy and then Data jumping over from one ship into another ship. Or does he do that in First Contact? No, he does that in this. Doing his superhero movie moves. And in general, it's a decent film, but really not very good. And obviously the guy who made this movie, Stuart Baird, I think his name is, didn't really understand Star Trek and didn't understand these characters. There are some dark moments in this movie, like Deanna being mind raped by Shinzon in an elevator, and some even more scenes that made it even more kind of like a horrifying kind of tale of a sorts in what was cut. It's another one of these movies I think would have been better if they kept the original cut of the movie. There's a lot more depth with Shinzon, and I think Thomas Hardy's a great actor, and coming off stuff that he was doing like Bronson around this time, excuse me, him to get so emaciated for this role, so thin, so unhealthy looking. I think there's a lot of good performances in this movie, not a good movie. I think Hardy is excellent in it. Patrick Stewart is always really great in movies. And I think this is, out of all the movies, the closest they've gotten to actually getting Data. And Data's one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek, if not my favorite next to like Garrick and Quark and stuff like that. Data would be right there on that list. But the problem with Data in the movies is they never knew really how to do him. They kind of rewound it and made him more of a silly comic character. They didn't understand what was great about him in the television show and couldn't quite do that properly in the movies. I feel like Nemesis was the closest to it. Maybe First Contact to a certain extent as well, but I think Nemesis really grasped what kind of person, and if Data was evolving as a human. He seemed like more of an evolved character in this. So I think there were some really good performances. I think Frakes sucks in this. I think that Deanna's actually pretty good in this. Beverly might as well not have been in it. Worf, they completely ignore everything that happened to his character in Deep Space Nine. Fuck balls. They don't even mention that he was the whatever. But if you're not a Star Trek fan, I think you can watch this movie almost as a comedy at times, or almost as, or if you're a huge Tom Hardy fan, as a character study or an acting piece for him. And seeing the scenes when he's working with Patrick Stewart, you get some really good work. And talking about him being an older version of himself and dealing with the issue of nature versus nurture is a big part of this movie. But I think there's so many things that could have been done a little differently to make it better. The whole B4 thing never should have happened. It should have been lore. And I don't know how they could have made it into lore considering what happened in Gambit in season 7. But I do think it should have been lore. And maybe it should have been a reveal at the end or some sort. And then you get the two clones essentially working against each other. But I think there are some problems in this movie, but it's not. Data is the Legolas of Star Trek. There's only one Nemesis, and his objective was to kill stars. Star killer! Why am I not surprised? What did Johnny say? Wise call. Fuck it, I'll settle. Oh, okay, sorry. Scrolling up. The Night King stole his swag design. So, as I take one more bite of that little sandwich, and go back to technical difficulties. But I think Nemesis has enough points that I relatively enjoy watching it. So, is Legolas supposed to be a bad or sucky? Is Legolas supposed to be a bad or sucky character? Because I always thought Samwise was the suckiest character. Especially the way Rudy plays him in those movies. Mr. Frodo! I can't carry it, but I'll carry you. I actually agree with you on that one, Jay. Sam was my least favorite character in the movies as well. I think what Johnny meant in that, though, was Data is the cool one that can do anything. Because to me, that's what Data is on the show. He's the unstoppable force. He's the one that can fire a billion arrows at light speed and kind of give you amazing coverage and can solve the ship's problems with the greatest of ease. All crew members bow at your knees for Dr. Sung's mighty creation. Broke says, Phil, you're stretching my opinions thin. Frodo sucks, little fucking Frodo bitch. No, I'm way more of a fan of Bilbo. If I'm picking my favorite Hobbit, it's not Frodo or Sam. They can shut the fuck up, both of those little assholes. It would be either Merry or Pippin or Bilbo. I think that would be my favorite Hobbit. Felicia says, you guys are always hating on my Sam. Yeah, I always thought Legolas was cool too. Phil, you should review 50 Shades of Grey. One day, someone will spin the wheel, will land on pick a review of something, and you can sit, Craig, and be like, Phil, you got to review 50 Shades of Grey. From Frodo sucks. Frodo, don't hear the ring. Okay, so that is Nemesis. Next up on this list of least favorites, I gotta say, now I have to start remembering which ones I said and which ones I didn't. So I would say next on this list would probably be Star Trek 09. I like Star Trek 09. I think it was really done really well. I think especially where Star Trek was, it was a movie that needed to happen. It's a very fun movie that invigorates Star Trek, but also has some very deep moments. Some of them with Leonard Nimoy, bringing back his character of Spock. I think his scenes in that movie are exceptionally well done. I think Christopher Pine is awesome. I love Christopher Pine, and I think he is the perfect guy to play Captain Kirk, and I think he owns that role. I think he's not doing a Shatner impression, and I'm not a big fan of reboots. Everybody that listens to this channel or has watched this channel knows this. I hate it. I hate them for the most part. But I think similar to what I like about Lethal Weapon, what I like about Christopher Pine's performance of Kirk, he's not trying to do a Shatner. He's doing Captain Kirk. And I think on some level, he's doing young Shatner, maybe doing Kirk and some of that early stuff, but he's really just trying to understand the character of Kirk in the same way Shatner understood the character of Kirk. And I believe that, and with the change that happened to him in his life, I feel like everything that happens to him in Star Trek 09 is really believable. I'm a Heroes fan. I like Zachary Quinto, and I know he looks the part. I don't think he quite, especially because he had to act against Leonard Nimoy, I don't quite think he quite grasps Spock for me. Spock for me. I don't, but my least favorite of them all, especially in this first movie, and something that brings this movie down for me a little bit, is the Bones. I don't think he's right for Bones. I think they could have cast better for him. I think he doesn't have a natural sense of humor. He's the one that most seems to me like doing an impression. But I think in general, that movie is a really good movie. I think it could have been better with some more information about the events that happened. I think if you played the Star Trek video game or you looked at the comic book leading into that movie, it makes it even better. Knowing that Geordi built the ship that sends Spock back in time, understanding what Nero went through inside a Klingon prison for so many years, actually seeing it and stuff like that got cut from the movie of him being in the Klingon prison, understanding his pain, because I think I'm blanking on the actor that plays Nero in the first movie. I thought from an acting standpoint, he did an exceptional job playing that character with limited stuff to do. And so I think Star Trek 09 is a very good movie. And I can't say anything really bad about it other than some of the individual performances bothered me. I think Gary Sinise might have been a better McCoy, or the dude that played dude from Lost that played Sawyer. I'm blanking on that guy's name. Are two guys that I would have wanted to see, like, at least in screen tests for Bones. I think the guy that they got doing him, who's also from the Lord of the Rings movie, who's Faramir on the Lord of the Rings movie, I believe. I'm blanking on his name. But I think he did a decent job doing a DeForest Kelley impression, but he doesn't naturally feel like Bones in the way that Pine feels like Kirk to me. In this movie, I think as I get to the next one on my list, which is Star Trek Beyond. Fun movie, really understood what it was about, the original cast. I think the fact that this movie was written by people that really liked Star Trek, that was written by Simon Pegg and his crew, you can really feel it in this movie. And I think Bones, the actor that played Bones, really mellowed out, and I think this was his best movie. And I think these two movies are very good Star Trek outings, or very good movie outings. They're fun. They keep what's fun about the original series while giving you an action movie that will be entertaining for people that aren't into all the cerebral Star Trek bullshit that I'm into. That's not what people want in a movie. And I think those two movies do a good job being fun movies that I can't talk too much shit about, that I can't be too nitpicky about. And they're almost one for me in this list. Not on my top half of my favorites, but well put together mid-2000 movies. Nothing too deep or special about them. I'll forget about them in a while, and I have to really stop and pause and think. Decent movies. Zoe was cast perfect, so plus she's fucked as hot as fuck. Heroes was good in the first half, but went to complete ass. Why they do Heroes Reborn? Shake my fucking head. I just want to watch Lord of the Rings right now. In the end, it will always be Sam who saves the world. I think my favorite character was Legolas. He was amazing. I think you guys are hating on Samwise. Don't hate on Samwise. Phil, can we give it up to Colm Mealy's Miles Edward O'Brien, first soberish Irishman to make the cut for the Voyage? Johnny, you just need to wait for my Deep Space Nine review, because I'm going to be talking so much about the guy who's on my shoulder right now, if you look behind me, Miles Edward O'Brien, the real motherfucking engineer, the real successor to Scotty. He is better than fucking Geordi. He is better than B'Elanna. He's better than who was the fucking dude on the guy that, spoiler alert for Enterprise, the guy that dies at the end of Enterprise. I'm blanking Enterprise. He is, to me, the best one. It's him and Scotty 1 for 1. Colin Mealy is a great actor, and he brings so much heart and effort into that role as Miles Edward O'Brien that he was on the original series too, or in Next Generation as well, and made so much out of so little that he got. Then to put him on Deep Space Nine, he made that show. Him and Julian's relationship, some of the deeper episodes with him when they didn't deal with Keiko. Fuck Keiko O'Brien, she can fucking eat a dick, but she can eat some haggis or some shit. Welcome, Emmanuel. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for the subscription, buddy. Really do appreciate that. Dancing an Irish jig. But he's what else was he in a movie? And he played someone's like drunk dad in something. Like fucking blanking on it. It was a comedy, but he has a lot of gravitas as an actor, and I love that motherfucker. In fact, whenever I'm doing my sound effects on the show and I yell, I'm like, "Oh, play some sound effects. What's going on?" Not that sound effect, and then my horrible, sorry, Johnny. Oh, Phil, I'm giving her all she's got. That's my Miles Edward O'Brien. Miles is amazing, though. Love him, but Deep Space Nine would not have been the same without him, and he is essential to that, so. Miles Edward O'Brien wouldn't make a pimple on Scotty's ass. K-Rich. Fuck that. If they made Scotty, okay, I love Scotty, don't get me wrong, but fucking the Next Generation episode where they put Scotty in with Geordi and stuff like that, and they had Geordi out Zoobada-Doo, and I'd say Miles without Zoobada-Doo, Technobabble Geordi. I'm so angry with my Star Trek opinions. No, you don't get it. Miles is someone that's just been a tinkerer his whole life. He's an enlisted man. He didn't go through all Starfleet and stuff like that. He had to work his way up with his talents, with what he can do with his hands. I think a ship with Scotty and Miles on it could rule the world. I think the combination of the two of them. And Scotty faked it a lot. He said he lied to the captain and told him it would take 4 hours when it only takes 2. So how else am I going to look like a miracle worker? War, K-Rich. It's war, Peacock. There's going to be casualties. Nerd war. Oh my God, I love it. So yes. Okay, so let's get to the next list, next one on the list here. Now, Scotty was the archetype from Burbank. Son of a bitch, I just sneezed like 10 times in a row. Achoo, achoo, achoo. Pikachu! So the next one on this list for me would probably be... maybe Miles and Scotty could take over the Game of Thrones writing, and anything's possible. So the next one on the list for me would be Generations. I think Generations is not a good movie, but I have fun with it. I think there's some good performances in it. I think seeing Shatner and Patrick Stewart together is fun. I think how it all works is fucking silly. It's fucking silly. Right from the beginning of this, the best part of this movie is the beginning. When you see Kirk on the ship with Cameron Fry as captain, and Kirk's like, Cameron, Ferris told me you can't hold your shit together, so get the fuck out of there. And Kirk doesn't quite take over the ship, but he does sacrifice himself and really falls into the fucking Nexus. And where McCoy and Spock, the two actors that play them, didn't want to be in this because they said it's a piece of shit I don't want to be in. But Kirk was in it. Silliness from on all possible avenues, right down to the tragedies that happened to Picard for no reason in the movie. Like everything that happened in the episode Family getting shat on for no reason whatsoever. It's like, but like characters being introduced that you would only know if you saw the television series. I just think this movie is a lot of badness, and I think it's fun, and I keep watching it for some reason. I can't help every time it's on. Watching it, there's a certain sense of fun to when the Enterprise crashes down at the end of it. I like Riker in this movie. I think this is Frakes' best performance in a movie. Well, I think he's pretty good in First Contact too. Data is annoying as shit in this movie. Life forms, just looking for some life forms. Those precious little life forms. Where are you? You might as well have had Wesley in this movie. Shut up, Wesley. Yeah, you might as well. It's not one of my, I don't think it's a good movie, but I have fun with it. Malcolm McDowell plays the villain in it. Whoopi Goldberg has an enhanced role in it as well. And I don't know, just something about this movie that doesn't work for me. And I think it's horrible, but it is near the top of my list because I have a lot of fun with it because of the fan fictionness of it all. And Star Trek movies are an illustration of the dictionary word by disappointment. It's true that I'm even getting to the top of this list where I'm about to talk about this movie, and the next one I'm going to talk about is Star Trek, which this could be either one here. Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, which again, a lot of people complain about this movie, and there's a lot of problems with it. But I still love the fuck out of this movie. When they break the Enterprise out and they're going, we get that dick captain of the Excelsior and shit. And then everyone screws them off and stuff. And they take the Enterprise and they destroy the Enterprise and all that stuff. Funny that these two movies are the two movies that they destroy the Enterprise in, and they're back to back on my list. But I'd say 3 is not a very good movie in all possible ways. There's some nitpicky, huge problems in Star Trek 3 you could get into. But it's so much fun. And you got Christopher Lloyd in it playing a Klingon and really kind of establishing these Klingons for their personality traits. Christopher Lloyd, we get that line, I want Genesis! We have Kirk on a planet fist fighting a Klingon. We just have so much, excuse me. A lot of people blame Khan for this. We also have, spoiler alert, the death of Kirk's son in this movie. We have the switching of Kirstie Alley to another character in this movie. And there's a lot of little problems in this. You could tell that Leonard Nimoy was learning how to direct in it. And there's a lot of issues. Obviously, Spock, Leonard Nimoy, who's a huge part of the dynamic of the Star Trek cast, is only in the very end of the movie because he, spoiler alert, dies in the second movie that we're going to be talking about in a bit. But I think this movie is in so much ways a combination of a disappointment and fun that I can't hate on it. It's one of my favorite Star Trek movies. Give me Genesis! Give it to me! Yeah, I know it's weird. I don't like it, but I like it. Fuck. Christopher Lloyd is horrible in this movie, but he's horribly awesome in the same way he is in like Suburban Commando. I was frozen today. He's almost like doing the same kind of voice. We have John Larroquette for all you Night Court fans playing a random Klingon. I don't deserve to live. With this big line of the movie. We have them taking over the Klingon ship that becomes very important, not important, but becomes a big factor in Star Trek 4, which it's like, if you saw Star Trek 4 before you saw that, you're like, why are they on a Klingon ship? But it's sort of this like trickery that Kirk does and stuff, where he beams them off and then gets into a fist fight with the Klingon at the bottom of the planet and stuff. So it's cheesy in almost every possible way. It's not perfect, but I love the hell out of the movie. It charms the shit out of me. Fuck you, Will Wheaton. If you go on Twitter and tell him to shut the fuck up, he will block you. He's a little bitch. I waited in line for 6 hours to see the Star Trek motion pictures. The one with shitport. I was so ready to have a nerdgasm, but oh well. And K. Rich, I don't know, you'll eventually maybe go back and list. I think that was number 2 on my least favorite list. It might have even been number 1. It might have even been my least favorite. I'm like forgetting what I put as least favorite ones. No, Insurrection was my least favorite, followed by Star Trek 1 for the same reason. They were boring as piss. So yeah, I cannot agree with you more about that, K-Rich. Dr. Brown was pretty good as a Klingon captain. That's because I love Christopher Lloyd and everything he does. So he's humorous in that role. They left Spock dead in Wrath of Khan. The new movie, at least they brought back Kurt with Superman blood, and the old movie wasn't smart enough to do that. Every one of them, Jay, you don't, fuck that. I would say a different thing. I would say that the old movies, not that they were smart enough to bring him back with Khan blood. That was stupid that they used Khan blood. What? Khan's blood brings people back to life? Why? He's genetically enhanced. He's not he's not Wolverine. He's not friggin' Claire from Heroes or some shit like that. Ugh. But where they did screw up, I think, and where I agree with you in somewhere, is they ultimately did do the same thing in 2, where they bring him back or show you that they're going to bring him back in 3 by giving you that clue that he's still alive at the end of the second movie. But being within McCoy's mind, I think that was an interesting way of him taking his identity and putting it in there. But I do think the movie could have shown some exceptional balls by killing Spock there, legit killing Spock there and keeping him dead. But I think the journey on which we go within Bones' mind and him going insane with the Vulcan mind meld and how that needs to connect, I think that really works because that's something we needed to see through the Vulcans. We need to see the extent of their strength, the extent of what kind of powers they have. And would Spock have really entered that room knowing that he was going there to sacrifice himself without having an out? Spock is someone that knows every single out, and if he had at least one out, he would legit take that, in which he did with McCoy. So I think it makes a lot of sense. What I think would have been an interesting take on it is if they didn't bring him back and have the body come back with Genesis and all of that shit. If they have Spock just live on forever in McCoy and make it just a challenge for the actor that played DeForest Kelley. I was going to say the actor that played DeForest Kelley. A challenge for DeForest Kelley to play that duplicitous mind and have Spock take over his mind sometimes and maybe do a split personality thing going on there with on a few other movies. But I think you need Spock for that, and I appreciate what they were trying to do in that second movie. I think the Khan blood stuff, I'm sorry, that's just... I appreciate that you like that, I do, but I think that's the stupidest plot device in the universe. I think it's ridiculous, and it's why part of the reason why that doesn't work. Because you can bring Spock back because there's a path for Vulcans to be brought back through... It hasn't been done in many ages, but it does exist, and it's talked about before, where you protect the identity, the essence, ultimately downloading your brain into a different host body, Raza Ghuling it all. But with, oh no, Khan's blood can bring people back to life. Hey, let's create this magic element that didn't exist in any other universe of Star Trek with genetically enhanced people. And don't tell me destroying Vulcan changes the rules of the Star Trek universe. It doesn't. It doesn't make blood magically heal people. He's genetically enhanced. Again, he's not Wolverine. So, anyways, I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, but I was just in the cinema watching it, and I can't tell you that shit was epic. I've heard nothing but great things about it, and I can't wait to watch it. Anyways, again, all respect. I'm going to play Jay's message at the end to let him defend Star Trek Into Darkness, and I'm going to go into the room at that time so I don't have to listen to it. No, Jay, I do appreciate that. I always appreciate the alternative perspective about movies and TV and stuff, because everyone can anticipate and like things in different ways. And I can just tell you how I feel and how something makes me feel. So let's go to the next one on this list for me. We've got I guess we're down to my top 3 Star Trek movies. And I know some people, the one I'm going to say right now, might not be their favorite because it's a different kind of movie. This movie takes everything that Star Trek does and makes Star Trek something else. And makes Star Trek a comedy, uses the dynamic of these characters and makes it funny. Yes, it also has a very heavy-fisted message about saving humpback whales mixed into it, okay? But ignoring all that and ignoring the time, the time capsule elements of it, this movie is so much fun for me to watch. I enjoy every aspect of it. I saw it in the theater when it first came out. I still quote like double dumbass on you. Where? Oh, sorry, I'm pushing my button. Computer. Excuse me, you need to use the mouse. You need to use the keyboard. Keyboard? How quaint. Just shit like that with, when I love the scene with Bones when Bones goes back and starts talking to a modern day doctor or an 80s day doctor about drilling holes into people's heads and about like just different ways of treating it and having like a more learned doctor doing it. And I know it doesn't make sense. He gives this woman a pill and she grows a kidney and some shit. But it's just so many funny moments. Chekhov being Russian and then having to go around asking for nuclear vessels. Where are the nuclear vessels? I need the nuclear vessels. And the fact he's like going up to security people and like the cops watching this like in the mid 80s of like the Cold War. You just have this character going around. Sulu's great in the movie, a horror storyline. Everything in the movie kind of works for me in a funny way. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think it has its cheesy elements. It's extremely cheesy. Some things don't make sense. The whole Italian food thing. I like Italian food. I don't like Italian food. I don't like Italian food. Oh, he took too much LDS in the 60s. I can't, it just constantly makes me laugh. And I think the simplest way to my heart in a movie or in any piece of anything is humor. And humor breaks down a lot of shit for me, a lot of walls. And this movie is straight up the funniest of all the Star Trek ever. And it's just hilarious. It shows you how funny all these people are. If anything, they didn't take advantage, maybe didn't take advantage of George Takei quite enough. But all the other characters, I feel like, had their huge moments in kind of these awesome scenes. Maybe a horror too. Maybe a whore too. Yeah, it's like the goddamn Spanish Inquisition around here. No favorite list of movies, but Star Trek and Deep Space Nine set on the top of the pile. Generations holds the next spot. After that, I remember Janeway. Genetically powered blood can bring people back to life. That made sense to me. Well, I'm glad it made sense to you. In all science fiction, anytime we've had genetically enhanced people, I've never seen anything like that. So I'm glad that it suddenly makes sense in the Star Trek universe to you. Again, I can't say that, no, dude, you're fucking dead. You mean, no, it's sci-fi. It's like what makes sense to one person isn't going to make sense to the next person. So, like, again, I can say I completely disagree with you 100%, Jay, but, you know, I'm glad that makes sense to you. Maybe I would have appreciated the movie more if it made sense to me, but it's fucking stupid to me. It's stupid when they do it in Heroes with Claire's blood, but to save her dad, and when they do it in fucking everything, and that makes a little bit more sense because she has healing powers. But anyways, Phil, your reasons for loving it is the same reason people love Braun. both Echo and Gary put it. It's like the goddamn Spanish Inquisition around here. DeForest Kelley is so fucking hilarious in Bones, and he kills it in that role. It's like all the lead up to the moment where he gets, like, he doesn't have much to do in this movie in Star Trek 4. He's just kind of standing around making wise-ass comments to Jim on the bridge. And you can tell the writer of the movie is just like, okay, we have this whole setup. We have Spock here. But you know what the killer part of this movie is going to be? When we have DeForest Kelley go and kill 10 minutes of this movie. And he just goes in, he's just like throwing around these expensive pieces of hardware that what they're gonna check out. Fuck, like we're in the fucking Spanish Inquisition. You don't go drilling holes in people's heads, man. You gotta stop the problem. It's goddamn hilarious. The voyage home was funny. All the mistakes can be forgiven. Exactly. That's how I feel. Johnny. Phil, you should get inside my head. Jerry, I don't doubt that at times that you and I would have a great time hanging out inside your head. But on this one, I can't join you inside that hut. I can't enjoy you inside that Into Darkness hut. Ugh. Johnny, just because you're delusional and you think that fucking furry beast has a chance against a dragon. I can't help you through your problems, Johnny, through your delusional direwolf love there. Oh, sorry, broke. Sorry, broke. Try not to keep all pillows away from you. But no, dude, thank you so much for popping on in here and being the first person that jumped in this random stream. So lots of love to the broke man. I don't know what the hell's happening, says your mom, but I'm here. Barry Allen went back in time to save Kirk. Hell yes. I love you, Johnny, so fucking much. So let's get to my final two here. The final two, I must admit, these two kind of go back and forth for me. And this might be a slightly unpopular opinion, what I'm going to say here with these two movies. But my second favorite of the Star Trek movies is Wrath of Khan. What did you just say? Phil, I'm talking to myself. Phil, what did you just say? My second favorite, as I'm looking for, you can always tell when I'm looking for sound effects because I pause. I'm like, wait a second, let me act like I'm stalling here and say the thing I want to say again. My second favorite of the Star Trek movies is Wrath of Khan. What? Sorry. I really like Wrath of Khan. I think it's well done. Ricardo Montalban is Khan to me, and I think he really establishes that as a connection from the episode Space Seed. I think it's really good that they did this. It was out of nowhere. It came after Star Trek 1, which was Star Trek the Motion Picture, which was a colossal disappointment for a lot of people in the theaters that went to see Star Trek and ended up seeing Space Odyssey with Star Trek characters, with character sprites, and no exciting computer killing people. It just was... Instead, you got Major Barrett. Or did you get Major Barrett at that point? But Wrath of Khan is really well done. It's a great chase movie. It has a lot of interesting elements. I think it's one of Shatner's best acting jobs from beginning to end in the movie. I think that the way that on the set, it was one of the first movies that dealt with a lot of set leaks and people saying, oh, we found out that that Leonard Nimoy's character dies in this movie. And ultimately what they decided to do is put this scene at the beginning of the movie where Spock kills everyone, where it seems like Spock dies, and everyone can be put at ease, and ultimately ends the movie with one of the most emotional scenes in all of Star Trek, with Spock dying and you're my friend, and holding it up, and Spock saving the ship and saving the friends safe. Yes. So emotional. Even talking about it kind of gets me down. Has the iconic Khan line. Kirk meets his son in it. He goes down the planet. We get more of Kirk being a pervert at times in it. We get to really get a big story point of this trilogy in the series. Genesis gets introduced in this movie. We get kind of a visual that even still holds up. We see the planet get developed. I think Kirk getting old really at the very beginning of this movie, Shatner is just at his best of what makes Shatner a great actor, playing these subtle touches of his facial expressions. Everybody thinks Shatner acts like this. But when Shatner's at his best, it's almost like he's holding it all in, and those moments are popping out of his head, and to a point of finally exploding of some sorts, like in the Twilight Zone episode, like when he's freaking out and all of that. Shatner is at his best when it sneaks up on you. And I think in this movie, it really sneaks up on you for me. And through the whole thing, you're like, shit, Shatner's awesome. And at least that's my experience watching the movie. And the reasons why it's not number one on my list is just because I feel like 6, as I'm going to get into it, is a better constructed movie in a lot of ways. And I think it's cheesy. It borrows a lot from Wrath of Khan. But I think the things that they're dealing with as they retire and as they're moving, and I think it works the best as everyone as a whole, the cast working together. Scotty is huge in that role, and I think it ends in kind of a cheesy fashion, but there's just something about that movie that fills me with this sense of, this is Star Trek. This is the pinnacle of what all this cast is doing. Almost similar to, I'll use a music example of why I like Abbey Road better than Sgt. Pepper, or better than the White Album, or better than Magical Mystery Tour, or Let It Bleed, or Let It Be. Because I feel like Let It Be was a colossal disappointment for the Beatles in the way that Star Trek V was. And then they all got back together and said, we can't end things like that. We need to do one last great movie. And they kind of called their shot on it and went and did one last great movie that Leonard Nimoy's maybe best of all the movies. He shows that duplicitous nature of everything that we're to see later in the Star Trek Next Generation story arc that he shows up, and the continuing his arc in Star Trek 09 and Star Trek Into Darkness. This starts that Spock arc, the one that he thinks from his vision is going to cost and sacrifice the people he cares about. And seeing him get emotional and fucking attack Kim Cattrall at one point in time and get manipulated and then lose his shit and show the humanness of him in a way that made sense, not like getting into a fist fight with Benedict Cumberbatch. Actually showing Spock emotions and showing his human side, and Sulu getting his own ship and the continuation of all of that. I feel like it's the first time that cast felt like they were in the modern time of Star Trek. And I feel like it was in the same universe, truly in the same universe as the rest of the prime time, the prime continuity. Whereas before that, it feels like a different era. It feels like a different world. And all the other movies. And I think the other three are a trilogy that are very compact and very connected to earlier Trek. And I think Wrath of Khan is great. I do think it's great. And I think, I said it a few minutes ago, but you wouldn't have the battle at the end of 6. It's very reminiscent of the Battle of Wrath of Khan. And the dinner that they all have at the table where they're discussing the problems between the Klingon Empire and the human Empire. I just thought it was a very good, very entertaining, a very good editorialized take on the end of the Cold War and the interactions between the Russians at the time and the United States. A lot better than Rocky IV. But in the same sort of way, it had some sort of element of that in it as well. But I don't know, I just love the death of this movie. It's my favorite Star Trek movie. And it usually doesn't falter. Sometimes I would say there's some moments where Wrath of Khan is my favorite, but that is my favorite of all the Star Trek movies. Ghost can some great stuff going on in the live chat right now about Ghost. I think we got the Ghost. I spun people off in a weird angle, Johnny, about the Ghost and Drogon fight. But so that is my list for favorite Star Trek movies. Thank you guys for tuning into this list. I know it's not the normal shit I do, but I'm going to be doing a lot more Star Trek content coming up here, and as well as maybe going back to these movies and doing individual reviews. Maybe I'll feel a little bit differently after rewatching them after so many years. I want to go and watch all of Star Trek in kind of like chronological order, but I'm going to initially go back and watch some of the series so I can do podcasts on this. I think I'm going to start with Next Generation, though, and kind of go there and maybe go back afterwards and do the original series stuff. So let me pull up this technical difficulties sign. Oh, no, that's the wheel. Technical difficulties. That's fine. I do not care that people can't stop talking about Game of Thrones. Obviously, even on this channel, if Game of Thrones off season, I talk about like 20 different shows, but during Game of Thrones, when the season's going on, do you notice how there's like no other videos on any other topic that comes out? So it's safe to say that we're half a Game of Thrones channel and then half a everything else on television channel, if it comes down to that, and then a negative percentage movie reviews, like not even any movie reviews. We barely do anything. So I'll be right back in about 2 seconds. I just need to run to the other room for a moment, and then we're going to play Jay's message and start to wrap things up. So let me, I will leave you with this song. Oh shit, you're right. You are right, motherfucker. You guys are right. And the Orville wasn't that bad. Stop hating everyone. Echo says, you forgot First Contact. And I did. It's really weird that I forgot First Contact because it is near the tops of the list. Where I would put First Contact on this list, I would put it right before Voyage Home. I would say I would go right. My top 4 then would be Star Trek First Contact, Voyage Home, Wrath of Khan, and then Undiscovered Country. So yes, that's where First Contact would be. And now to talk about First Contact. First Contact is a great action movie, a lot of fun. I don't like some of the things that it ignores, but it really is the first movie and the only Next Generation movie that feels like it engulfs the entire universe. The Borg was set up as an exceptionally great villain that needed to be brought back at some point in the series. This movie needed to happen. I love the new Enterprise. It looks fucking amazing, like Data's arc with the Borg Queen, even though I don't like the concept of a Borg Queen. I think in general, every part of this movie works from an action standpoint. It gives Patrick Stewart what he wanted, a vehicle to be the hero. I think the love story doesn't really work too much with him and his character. I think the stuff on the planet that parallels it in the past, the Zephyr Cochrane stuff, works too. I think that's what makes this movie good. It's all elements coming together to create a good next generation action movie that doesn't necessarily care too much about all the stuff set up in the Next Generation series, but I do like at the beginning of this movie when they don't let Picard get into the fight with the Borg, not because, and they don't explain it well in the movie, but I think it has to do with the Hughes situation and him not destroying the Borg when he had an opportunity to during the series. So I like when they connect things to the series and make the people that watched it pay that off, but not necessarily have to do that. So, and the Captain Ahab thing was done really well, and I think Patrick Stewart would have played a really great Captain Ahab if he never did. I think the Moby Dick thing makes a lot of sense in showing him lose his shit, even though a lot of people have heard some Star Trek fans go, there's a lot of out of character moments in that he dealt with that shit in Family, but I don't think he ever really dealt with that shit in Family. You got to see more of it in where he wanted to kill the Borg, but he couldn't because the whole Borg collective with the Hughes situation, but he couldn't because of he was let his people around him influence him. And I think, but ultimately deep inside, especially after the events of Generations, when he loses his nephew and he loses the rest of his family, the thing that brought him back to normal, it could make sense in First Contact why he started to lose it and connected to what happened to him, that he was kidnapped, and this connection again, plus the Borg are probably starting to feed him because they wanted him back to be that voice of the Borg again. Oh, but it was the Borg King, everyone would be fine, fucking sexist. No, I wouldn't be fine if it was a Borg King. The Borg are a collective. I don't think they work well when you have a central figure leading the Borg. I don't give a shit if it's a queen or a fucking giant spaghetti monster leading the Borg. I don't give a fuck. It's not about that. It's about the Borg were better as a villain if you didn't have a face to establish it. Because you included a Borg queen, it establishes it later in Voyager. And I think the Borg Queen sucks way more in Voyager than it does in First Contact. And maybe I'm carrying some of the baggage from what they did to the Borg on that show and making it have way more desire and less as a collective central mind force, which I think is better because it shows how different creatures can think different ways. Not everything is similar in this world. So I say no. I don't give a fuck if it's a queen or a fucking king. The concept of a leader of the Borg is stupid. So yeah. I don't mind you. You can think that, but that's not why I don't like it. So, was there ever explanation of how the Borg started, or was it all a rogue made? I think it started. The Borg Queen does explain it several times where the Borg started. They started off as a species similar to like Gollum. They started off as a species of an organic creature, and they just started to keep improving themselves. It's part of the reason why I think I like the idea of there isn't one central leader of the Borg. It's just a culture. They decided that collective thinking was better, and then it just seems like it's more, I guess it's a hive mind rather than a collective on that sense. But I think for me, it always worked better if the Borg were just this different essence, not retreading the canon of it. I agree, SM. SM's right. It's tough to sell a faceless villain to mass audiences, which is what they were trying to do in that movie, which is why they decided to put a face to it all. I agree with you, Jay, on that one. That's exactly, I've heard a little bit of the writing process. If you've never listened to somebody called SF Debris, he's one of the old school creators of content like that's talking about TV shows. He's been around for fucking ever. He talks a lot about, he has some insides on the writing teams of working on Star Trek stuff, and that's exactly why the Borg Queen was created. If making First Contact, they needed a villain. They at first concept, it was just going to be the Borg, and the Borg is as a entity, but you can't sell an entity as a villain. It's too tough. So you are a very good point, as always, a very good point by Jay, unless he's talking about Into Darkness. So here we go. I'm kidding with you, Jay. let's listen to, okay, Jay left a full fucking 3-minute message of fucking what his defense of Into Darkness. So I'm going to sit back, relax, and listen to Jay's points and not interrupt him. So no matter how much he calls me a fool. So here we go. Here's our good buddy Jay with his defense of Star Trek Into Darkness. Now, anyone else who's listening to this Star Trek list that I made, if you go back and listen to it, if you're in the comment section at any point in time, please tell me where you think I'm wrong in all of this. Star Trek's amazing that it has lots of different interpretations. I'm sure everyone that's watched all these movies has a different list. It could be completely flipped around. Someone's favorite movie could be Insurrection or the first movie. I love to hear what you guys think about some of the things I said about Star Trek, especially the Star Trek fans, if you guys happen to wander into here as well. But your list of favorite movies and maybe some other topics about Star Trek you might want to hear. So let's listen to Jay's message about why he likes Into Darkness.
Why is it a good action movie? Because when I watched it, I cared about every single thing that was going on at every single point. Hey, the action that was in the story helped to propel the story going forward. The characters in the story helped propel the action in the story, like Khan versus
Spock.
Spock. The number 2 guy
Spock
was a really good fight scene or whatever. Vulcan versus that superhuman dude. The fact that they used his blood to bring Chris Pine back to life was kind of cool. When they were when they're falling to Earth, which shouldn't physically be possible, but when they're falling to Earth from outer space.
Whoa! When they're falling to Earth, which shouldn't physically be possible. I'm sorry.
I am like locked in, and my heart is like going, and for like, oh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? It grabbed me by the edge of my seat.
Okay. And I'm going to play the rest of your message, but everything you're saying is my exact point, that this excited you in a way that it didn't excite me, and I appreciate that. I wish it did this. I wish this movie did this to me, and I went to see it opening night, and I wanted it to do it, and it didn't. I would have been happy if it touched me inappropriately the way it touched you. So let's listen to more of Jay's orgasm for Star Trek Into Darkness. You're making me more excited for this movie than I was, because I'm trying to see it through your eyes now. I'm trying to get inside your mind, and I still think it's a piece of shit, but okay, that was a good fight scene. Zachary Quinto plays intense as fuck really well. You see it a lot in Heroes as Sylar, and when he's angry and yelling, you believe and you feel that Zachary Quinto is angry, so that's a fair point.
He had me on the edge of my seat. It excited me for the entire movie, and that's what an action movie is supposed to do. So why do I think this was a great action movie? Because everything when I watched the movie, everything about it screamed, "Oh, this is awesome!" And also, as a side note, one of the main characters was also a hot chick in her underwear at some point, and that's good for every action movie. Okay.
Okay, Michael Bay agrees with you. We got Michael Bay on the phone. Tell this guy Jay he's right. That's why I put Megan Fox in all my movies. So yeah, that's true. It's true. It's like in the Ninja Turtles movie, why we needed to have that trailer part, and I won't do it, where she ties up her shirt and stuff. Just so we make sure that you know that Megan Fox is going to strip down. It's not going to be a movie of all Ninja Turtle stuff.
And by the way, since we've gone out of the early 90s and the 80s, we've had more depth in action movies. Action movies are no longer we just had.
I agree with you 100%. I just don't think it's this way in this movie. I'm gonna play the rest of your point, but I agree with you. I think there has been a lot of movement in action movies from the time of like the Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, Seagal era of action movies, or just straight up like bang boom boom whatever movies. I just feel this movie doesn't have that.
This like one dude who can't really act, like Steven Seagal, come in and just like, okay, we're gonna throw in like a couple good actors here, and like
that's awesome that you mentioned Seagal too there. Forget it. Great.
All these fight scenes will look cool or whatever. Now action movies are more plot wise and more character building that like the Avengers and everything else are now considered the action movies. We don't have like early 90s and late 80s style action movies anymore, where the entire movie That's the entire thing. It's just action. That's all you're getting action for the movie. Now they have more complicated plot lines for action movies. So in conclusion, that's why this is an awesome action movie.
Good.
Okay?
Bam!
I was riveted. I was gripping my seat from beginning to end. And when it got to the action, I was never bored, and I never felt like, man, this looks like some really like big explosions, but there's really nothing going on here. Like how I felt when I watched.
Okay, how he felt. I don't know what movie he was going to use an example of, like he felt when he watched another movie, but very good message by Jay. Lots of good points and lots of good reasons why he liked that movie. And I agree with most of your points about action movies. It's what I like about this modern era of action. I feel like when a movie's done well, especially the really good Marvel films, it gives you, or really good any of the superhero movies, even if you go something like some of the Nolan Batmans or some of the other. I was trying to think of another good DC movie, or Wonder Woman or something. Like it does exactly what you're saying there. I don't think Into Darkness does that. I think Into Darkness is way too hollow. Maybe that's because I expected more, but I don't feel like it built on the same kind of level of depth in story that even the first movie in that particular series did in 2009, or what Beyond did in the following movie. I feel like it was a little too much. Maybe I didn't say it as good before. I feel like it's a little bit too much formulaic action for action's sake. And I know, yeah, well, you felt it. You felt for every character and stuff. I felt like those were hollow reasoning. It was like, we hate Khan because this old Spock says we should hate Khan, and he's a bad guy now. And I don't know. I just felt like it was all. Maybe I would have liked it more if I wasn't as much of a Star Trek fan. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but I mean, as just an action movie, maybe it's not offensive, and it's not like completely stupid like the worst of the Transformer movies would be. So I see what you're saying. It definitely has some depth. You care about some of the characters if you're feeling it. Zoe, whatever her name is in her underwear. Oh no, we get the blonde, Kirk's girl in the underwear. Whatever. There's some good-looking women in it. We get some fun fist fights and some banging yada yada. So, again, if I'm trying to spend some time in Jay's mind, hey, look at them titties over there. Oh, sorry, Jay, you sick motherfucker. But if I'm trying to spend some time in Jay's mind, I can see maybe why some people would like that movie. It's still one of my least favorite Trek movies. And least favorite of the modern day action movies. I would put it like way down on the list compared to any of the other Marvel movies I like. If I'm comparing it to that, I put it down on the list. I know some people like this movie. I put it down there with like Man of Steel as like two of my least favorite action movies of the last 5 years or so, 10 years or so. Great stuff. Besides the new movies, I don't think Star Trek movies that well. So besides Into Darkness, I'm not disputing anything else. If you're smart, you can get wasted without feeling death the next morning. You got to eat too. Phil, I liked it. Maybe it's because I haven't watched the other movies. I can see that. I get you, lady. I'm just messing around. I just meant you can get stupid drunk and not feel like death. Drink safely, one sip every beer. I find if I want to drink and not feel like shit the next day, I drink and then eat, or drink some synthol, which isn't real alcohol, and Scotty doesn't like it. It's not green like the good stuff. But I guess this is as good a time as any to start to wrap things up here. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me for this live stream talking about my favorite Star Trek movies, or the list of my Star Trek movie rankings. Appreciate anyone who joined us last night for Orville. I'm going to definitely continue watching that show for a quick response to that. I didn't like it as much as some, didn't hate it as much as others, so I'm sort of right in the middle of that show right now, and I'm looking forward to the next episode to see where it goes. And obviously, we'll be talking about Star Trek Discovery, the premiere, not this coming Sunday, but the following Sunday. Myself and Joe Dirtylocks will be watching that episode whenever it airs, because they're not exactly sure. It depends when football ends, so we'll be watching Into Darkness, and then right afterwards coming on the air, or around 10 o'clock-ish on Sunday evening after Into Darkness airs, to do a live recap and review. And I will also be back soon to maybe do one of these about the Star Trek series, or individually break down each series. I'm not sure what the next Star Trek topic, but expect a lot more of these throughout the weeks and months coming up here in the fall and winter. A lot more Trek stuff coming up right away. And you guys are fucking amazing, as always, for joining me this afternoon. If you haven't already, and you enjoyed this kind of discussion, or you enjoyed just listening to some good old-fashioned babbling, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, share the channel with a friend. Lots of love to everyone in the live motherfucking chat right now for joining us this afternoon on this impromptu stream. Echo, Felicia, happy birthday one more time, Felicia, Johnny, Lady Warrior, Lindsay, SM, thank you for the call, Travis, and all of our other friends that popped on in throughout the stream today. So, I will be back on again. Where the fuck did I do? What the shit did I do? I fucked it all up.
Hello, I'm Christopher Plummer, and I'm so excited.
No, Christopher Plummer, I don't want to hear you. Sorry, I somehow lost the live motherfucking chat. Somehow, where did the live motherfucking chat go? But no, thank you to everyone that checked out this live stream. You might hear me in echo here for a second until I can figure this out. Yeah, I gotta bring the chat, motherfucking chat back up. But yes, I will be back tomorrow again at 2:30 p.m. roughly Eastern Standard Time with King Baby Duck, my friend Evan. He was on last year doing the same thing, and we're going to do our Emmy predictions. And which should be a silly little fun time. And then this coming Sunday, Stephanie and I are going to be getting drunk and watching the Emmys live and making fun of the whole thing. So we're going to do our Emmy pick. We'll also post the Emmy pick up on a Google Doc. So if anyone wants to put their initials next to their picks and play the silly drinking game or whatever game we're going to be playing, or just say, I won, you can join us as well. And that would be fun. So yeah, lots more Star Trek stuff coming up very soon. Thank you so much for joining me. And let me scroll over here. Let me scroll over here to some music. Let's get back to this song. Talk to you guys next time. Later. Fully functional? Fully functional. Johnny? Is that you, Johnny? The Irish Wildling? I mean, Johnny Giants Man? Yes, I can hear you. What's that? Something dropped in here? That's right. Captain's log. Space. Whatever the fuck date is. 2017. What's that? Something dropped? Yes, it was my magic drum. No worries. Nothing's broken. The drum was fucking strong. Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. Let's make sure the drum still works. Do you still work, Johnny? Yeah, it seems to work okay. Okay. Works pretty good. But thank you. Thank you. Oh, why is there echo on? I didn't want no echo on. There's no echo here. And why am I still here? I said goodbye already. And I can't fucking go away. I don't know how to go away. This dude, he says fucking goodbye 77 fucking times. You know, fucking what the fuck, dude? Get the fuck out of here. I don't want to hear your fucking bullshit.